I could do this all day. I can do this all day.
I can do this all day. If there's one line that defines Captain America, it's this. No long speeches, no unnecessary drama, just a simple promise. No matter how many times he gets knocked down, he'll get back up. We all love a hero who never gives up. But what if I told you most people quit just before their breakthrough? And let's be honest, life feels like that sometimes. No matter how hard you try, things keep going wrong. Maybe you failed over and over and you're starting to wonder if you should even keep going. Maybe the weight of expectations, both from others and yourself, feels too heavy to carry. And that's where Captain America's real power comes in. It's not in his super strength, not in his shield, it's in his ability to keep going. His toughest battles aren't just against Red Skull or Thanos, they're against something far more dangerous. Doubt, fear, and that voice in his head whispering that it's not worth it. But here's the thing, you have that same power inside you. In this video, I'm going to show you why resilience is the real superpower and how you can use it in your own life. Because at the end of the day, you don't need to be the strongest, you just need to be the one who refuses to quit. Before Steve Rogers became Captain America, he was just a skinny kid from Brooklyn. He wasn't the fastest, the strongest, or the biggest. No one saw him as a threat. No one believed he could make a difference. But that never stopped him from trying. A strong man who has known power all his life may lose respect for that power. But a weak man knows the value of strength and knows compassion. The night before the procedure that would change everything, Steve has a conversation with Dr. Erskine, the man behind the Super Soldier program. But Erskine doesn't talk about muscle, speed, or power. Instead, he tells Steve why he was chosen. Because he knows what it's like to be weak, to struggle, to get knocked down, and have no one believe in him. And that's exactly what makes him different. Because resilience isn't about waiting for the perfect moment or hoping things will get easier. It's about choosing to stand up and fight, even when the odds are against you. Wait, before you say, that's just a movie, let me tell you why this matters in real life. Think back to a time when you felt like giving up, when you tried, failed, and wondered if you'd ever be strong enough to keep going. Maybe you faced rejection, maybe you felt like an outsider, maybe you started believing that you just weren't meant to succeed. But what if the only thing standing between you and success is the choice to keep going? Because here's the truth, your strength isn't defined by your circumstances, it's defined by your choices. And just like Steve, you don't have to wait to feel ready. You don't need super strength, a shield, or a perfect moment. You already have the power to choose resilience. By the end of this video, you'll see how adopting this mindset can help you overcome any challenge, just like Captain America. Because resilience isn't just a trait, it's a superpower you already have. Maybe you've felt like this before. You have a goal, a dream, something you want to achieve, but every time you take a step forward, there's something pushing you back. Maybe it's rejection, maybe it's failure, maybe it's the fear that no matter how hard you try, you'll never be good enough. And I get it. Why keep fighting when nothing seems to change? Why keep pushing when the world tells you, no, this isn't for you? Steve Rogers had every reason to give up. He finally got what he wanted, the chance to serve, only to be sidelined as a mascot, a joke. He could have walked away, convinced himself that maybe he wasn't meant for more. Maybe you're here right now, frustrated, tired, and wondering if it is worth it. But what if the moment you want to quit the most is the moment that matters the most? Here's the truth. Everyone who has ever achieved something great has faced this moment. The moment where everything in you says, stop, quit, this isn't working. Psychologists call this the dip point, the moment where most people give up, just before a breakthrough happens. Research shows that those who push through and make one extra attempt often achieve the results they were striving for. But what if, just like Steve Rogers, you refused to listen? What if, instead of walking away, you found another way forward? Because the difference between those who succeed and those who don't isn't talent. It's not luck, it's the willingness to keep going, even when it feels impossible. No one builds resilience alone. At some point, we all need guidance, someone who sees what we're truly capable of, even when we can't see it ourselves. Someone who reminds us of our strength when we are ready to give up. For Steve Rogers, that person was Dr. Erskine. Erskine didn't choose Steve because he was the strongest or the fastest. He chose him because of his heart, his persistence, and his refusal to give up. The night before Steve undergoes the experiment, Erskine gives him one simple but powerful piece of advice. And this is where I step in as your guide. Because I know exactly what it feels like to struggle. I remember a time when I felt stuck, just like you might feel right now. There was a moment in my life where everything seemed to be going wrong. I had a goal, something I was passionate about, but no matter how hard I worked, it felt like I was getting nowhere. Rejection after rejection, setback after setback, and for a while I started believing that maybe I just wasn't meant to succeed. I remember lying awake at night thinking, maybe I should just stop, maybe I'm wasting my time. But then I made a choice. I decided that I wouldn't let failure define me, that I wouldn't let the opinions of others dictate what I was capable of, that no matter how many times I fell, I would get back up. And when I did, things started to change. I learned that success isn't about being perfect. It's not about always knowing the right answer. It's about resilience, about showing up even when you're scared, about refusing to quit even when everything in you wants to. I've been there. I know what it's like to doubt everything, but I also know what happens when you push through. And now, it's your turn. Because here's the truth. Resilience isn't about becoming someone new. It's about holding on to who you are even when the world tries to break you. Maybe you've been told you're not enough. Maybe you've convinced yourself that unless you're perfect, you'll never succeed. But let me tell you something. That's not what makes you strong. What makes you strong is your refusal to compromise who you are. What makes you strong is getting back up, no matter how many times life knocks you down. Steve Rogers took that advice to heart. He didn't let power change him. He didn't let failure define him. He held on to who he was, and that's what made him unstoppable. And now, I'm giving that advice to you, because soon you'll have to prove something, not just to the world, but to yourself. That you are more than what people see on the outside. That you are more than your failures. That no matter what happens next, you will keep going. And I'm going to help you do it. There comes a moment when you have to stop preparing, stop hesitating, and take action. It's the point of no return, the moment where you step forward even if you're afraid. For Steve Rogers, that moment came when he jumped on a grenade. It wasn't a plan, it wasn't a strategy, it was pure instinct. He saw a threat and without thinking, he threw himself on top of it to protect everyone else. That was the proof that Dr. Erskine and later the world needed. Steve didn't become a hero because of the super soldier serum, he became a hero because of who he already was. Now, think about your own journey. You've had moments where you hesitated, where you questioned if you were ready. Maybe you wanted to start something new, take a risk, or stand up for something you believed in. But fear held you back. Here's the lesson. You will never feel 100% ready. No one does, but at some point you have to trust that who you are right now is enough and take that final step. Because real strength isn't about waiting for the perfect moment, it's about choosing to act, even when you're afraid. Once you take that first step, challenges will come. Resilience isn't tested when things are easy, it's tested when everything goes wrong. Steve Rogers learned this when he stepped onto the battlefield for the first time as a leader. War wasn't about strength alone, it was about decision-making, about knowing when to push forward and when to adapt. One of his toughest moments came when he and his team were ambushed, outnumbered, and forced to fight against impossible odds. The easy choice would have been to retreat, but Steve doesn't take the easy way out. He adapts, finds a way to fight back, and leads his team to victory. Now, think about your own journey. Maybe your battle isn't on the battlefield, but it might feel like one. You've worked hard. You've been doubted, maybe even by yourself, but every setback is just another test. So, what do? You adapt. You find a way. You push forward anyway. Focus on what you can control. Not every situation is winnable, but your reaction is. Find your allies. Just like Steve had Bucky, Peggy, and later Sam, you need people who support and challenge you. Keep going, even when things feel impossible, because resilience isn't about winning every time, it's about not giving up when you lose. Because in the end, your greatest enemy isn't failure, it's the fear of trying again. At this point, you might be thinking, okay, but what if I try and still fail? Well, let me ask you this. What's worse? Failing? Or never knowing what could have happened if you didn't quit? At some point, every journey reaches a breaking point. The moment where the challenge feels too big, the fight seems impossible, and every instinct tells you to turn back. For Steve Rogers, that moment came in Avengers Endgame. After years of fighting, after losing friends, after seeing the world fall apart, he found himself alone, standing against Thanos and his entire army. No backup, no reinforcements, just him. This is what resilience really looks like. Not just pushing through difficulty, but standing your ground even when the odds are stacked against you. And this is where most people quit. Maybe you've had moments like this too. You've tried everything, but life keeps knocking you down. You've given your all, but it's still not enough. You feel like you're fighting a battle you can't win. So what do? Shift your focus. Instead of thinking, how much more can I take? Ask yourself, how far have I already come? Remember your purpose. Steve didn't fight because he thought he could win. He fought because it was the right thing to do. Take one more step. Resilience isn't about seeing the finish line. It's about choosing to move forward even when it hurts. Because the truth is, you're stronger than you think. And sometimes, all it takes is holding on just a little longer for everything to change. The fight isn't over yet, but it feels like it should be. Steve Rogers stands alone, breathing heavily. His shield, once unbreakable, is now shattered. His body aches, his strength is failing, and yet, the enemy in front of him remains stronger, bigger, unstoppable. And if you think resilience is just about working harder, think again. Steve watches as Thanos' army marches forward, stretching endlessly across the battlefield. The world is silent, except for his own breath. He grips his broken shield, but deep down he knows he cannot win this fight alone. Maybe you felt this too. You fought so hard for something, poured everything into it, only to face yet another impossible challenge. That moment where exhaustion sets in, where doubt whispers, maybe this is where I stop. But then, something inside you refuses to quit. Not yet. Steve straightens up. He plants his feet. Even if he's the last one left, he will fight. Thanos lifts his blade. His army stops. The world seems to pause. This is it, the moment where everything will fall apart. Steve knows what's coming, but he doesn't move. He's outmatched, he's outnumbered, but he's still standing. And sometimes, that's enough. Maybe you've been there too, at the breaking point where giving up seems easier than pushing forward, where you failed so many times you start to believe you'll never succeed. And then, the voice cuts through the silence. Hope returns. One by one, the Avengers appear. Reinforcements arrive. The impossible battle suddenly feels possible. Not because it got easier, but because Steve never surrendered. Because resilience isn't just about standing alone. It's about knowing that even in your darkest moments, someone has your back. As Bucky Barnes once told Steve, this is how real resilience works. You will face struggles, you will hit breaking points, but if you hold on just a little longer, if you keep going when it feels impossible, you'll see that the fight was never yours to face alone. The hardest part of the journey is over. Steve stood his ground when it mattered the most, and because of that, everything changed. His resilience didn't just save him, it proved his worth, not just to others, but to himself. And then, in one defining moment, the world saw what had been true all along. That moment wasn't about strength, it wasn't about power, it was about who he had always been. The reason he was worthy wasn't because he won every fight, it was because he never stopped fighting. And that's the lesson here. Perseverance brings rewards. Maybe you're still in the middle of your own battle. Maybe you're tired, wondering if all this effort is even worth it. But here's the truth. Every great success story started with someone who refused to quit. J.K. Rowling was rejected by 12 publishers before Harry Potter became a global phenomenon. Walt Disney was fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination. Imagine that, being told you're not creative enough, then going on to build Disneyland. Oprah Winfrey was told she wasn't fit for television. Now she's one of the most influential media figures in the world. All of them had their Steve Rogers moment. The moment where they had every reason to give up, but chose to keep going instead. Because in the end, success doesn't belong to the strongest, it belongs to the ones who refuse to stop fighting. Victory doesn't mean the journey is over. Even after proving himself, Steve Rogers still had to face new challenges. Winning the fight didn't erase the sacrifices, nor did it make the next steps easy. And that's the reality of success. It comes with its own set of obstacles. Maybe you've pushed through a major hurdle, but now you're facing doubt again. Maybe motivation fades, or fear of failure creeps back in. That's normal. The key is to keep moving forward. As Captain America once said, success demands continuous effort, and every achievement comes with its own sacrifices. But true resilience isn't about avoiding struggles, it's about facing them head-on. Staying motivated means remembering why you started, set new goals, push yourself beyond comfort, and surround yourself with people who inspire you. Some days will be harder than others, but resilience isn't about constant motivation, it's about discipline, about choosing to show up even when you don't feel like it. Every ending leads to a new challenge. The real question is, what will you do next? There always comes a final test. The moment where everything you've learned, every struggle you've faced, is put to use. For Steve Rogers, that moment came when he had to make a choice. Stay and continue fighting, or step away and finally live for himself. This is what true resilience looks like. Not just the ability to endure, but the wisdom to know when it's time to move forward. Success isn't just about persistence, it's about growth, about becoming the person you were always meant to be. You've fought, you've grown. Now, what's next? How do you ensure you don't fall back into old habits, old fears? The answer is simple. Keep evolving, keep pushing yourself beyond limits, keep choosing the life you want rather than the one that's expected of you. Because resilience isn't just about survival, it's about transformation. And now you have everything you need to take control of what comes next. The journey has been long. The battles have been tough, but if there's one lesson Steve Rogers leaves behind, it's this. You don't need superpowers to be a hero. You just need the will to keep going. Maybe you're still in the fight. Maybe you're facing setbacks, doubts, or moments when giving up seems like the easiest choice. But remember, real strength isn't about never failing. It's about always getting back up. Steve proved that resilience shapes destiny. And now, Sam Wilson carries that same message forward. No super serum, no shortcuts, just the determination to stand up for what's right, no matter how hard the fight. So, ask yourself, what battle am I fighting? What challenge am I ready to face? Because the world doesn't need perfect heroes. It needs people who refuse to give up. Now, it's your turn. Steve Rogers showed us that resilience isn't about strength, it's about never backing down from what matters. So, here's your challenge. What's one battle you've been struggling with? One challenge you've been tempted to walk away from? Drop it in the comments, because the first step to overcoming it is admitting it. And then, take one small step forward today. Right now, not tomorrow, not next week, right now. Because resilience starts with a choice to to keep going, even when it's hard. If this message hit home for you, if you're ready to push forward, like this video, subscribe, and join a community that never backs down. Are you in?